Hey everyone, made another video here. I own a Ford and a Lincoln, and get a lot of problems and have some issues with Ford today. The specific issue is with expanding or swollen lug nuts. And I didn't even know this was an issue until about a month ago. I went to try to change my rear brakes, which should be a pretty easy job. The problem is I could not get the lug nuts off. I got 3 or 4 on each tire off, but there was one or two that I couldn't get off, and I knew they were not security lug nuts. And I thought at first maybe they were stripped, but then, if they were stripped, you'd be able to put the wrench on there and spin it round and round and round, and it would, basically act like a stripped lug nut. These ones, I couldn't even get the socket wrench on the nut. It was like it was bigger for some reason. And I didn't have a size that fit any of it because, what it had swollen to didn't really make sense. I'll give you some history of why this happens and then how to address the issue. So essentially, the lug nuts here, and you can see I've put a little black mark on this one because that's the swollen one. Others may have swollen since then. But what happens is Ford and Lincoln, because this is basically a fusion body here, the lug nuts that they've used, it's a steel lug nut, and then they coat it in another metal, zinc or chrome or some aluminum. And then they dip this in plastic, and you can see this one here is a little dinged up. I didn't actually bend metal with my bare hands. It's actually a plastic coating. And what happens in New England, or places where there's salt on the road, or maybe coastal towns where there's salt, that can get through this plastic cap right here, and the steel and the other metal on the lug nut itself will actually expand. But since the plastic coating is there, there's no way to scrape the rust off. So it just, instead of being the right size, it just swells a little bit. That's not great if you're stranded on the side of the road, because you won't be able to use the jack and the tools that they've given you to take the lug nut off, because it won't fit. So there is a class action lawsuit out there. If you Google expanding or swollen lug nuts on Google, the website will direct you to a certain law firm that I would recommend doing it, because Ford will resell you these same lug nuts, but they have not addressed the issue. There's been no technical service bulletins or any recalls or anything, which is highly unfortunate. So you could buy new ones from them, and you got 20 lug nuts, replace all of them, which really doesn't fix the problem. It would be $120. You can buy them from the parts store, which is still a little bit expensive, probably $60 to replace all the lug nuts. Or you can do like I'm done here, and I've went to Amazon and I just picked up a package of 20. Obviously, it's not going to exactly match the color here, but if I'm stranded on the side of the road, I want to be able to get these things off. If I'm changing my brakes, I want to get these things off. I don't want to have to fool around with it. So with all that being said, we'll go ahead and give you kind of the example. Here is the wrench, and you can see it fits this one pretty good. It goes in, you can spin it here, works fine. Same thing for all the other ones. Here's the one I've painted black. It won't even fit around it. And there's other sizes you could try, but it's not really going to help you out. So you have two options. You can try to take a screwdriver, and this is the worst option. I'd go with my second option. You take a screwdriver, you hit it, a hammer, and you break all the plastic off, and then you can scrape the rust off, and then you can get the socket wrench on there. That's not a best case scenario. The guy at the tire store actually recommended this to me. He says it's seen quite often with Ford, Lincoln, and some Toyotas. He says to, let me get the tool ready here for you guys. Take a 6-point socket, the one that's supposed to fit, so you can see it fits the other ones, right? And this one happens to be 19 millimeters. I think it's 19 millimeters or 3/4 on this car. Place it on where the as far as it can go. And then we are just going to hammer it. Now I apologize for the noise, but you're going to hammer it as far in as it can go. Basically you're creating kind of new grooves. That's why you try to put it on there as best you can to fit on the old grooves. Gets rid of some of that rust. Now make sure you put it on center because you don't want to bend it or break it or anything like that. And let's see if these are torqued the right way. Yep. So now I can easily go ahead and get that off. That's the best way that I found to do it, is using the hammer. And again, be sure to use the 6-point socket rather than the 12, because you're going to be creating a whole another mess of problems there if you do. Also, what you may experience is you've hammered it on there, it's in there pretty good, so you can take that same screwdriver and take your hammer again, and it pops right out. And then, like I said, I'm going to replace the lug nuts with new ones. I bought these on Amazon for $20. If you look in your owner's manual, it'll tell you what size you need. This particular one is 12 millimeters by 1.5, and it says I need to go on with at least 7 turns. So I hope that has helped you. Again, it's not terrible if you use your hammer, and I would recommend getting a different socket than the one you normally use. My Craftsman one, I didn't want to ding it up. I know there used to be free replacement, but I don't know if that's the situation now. Anyway, I hope that has helped. Best case scenario, use the hammer. Worst case scenario, beat up the plastic until you can kind of work it off.